Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Home Park for today's coverage of the funeral of our friend Gordon Sparks, which will be taking place at 11:30 later this morning. And we'll be with you intermittently until that point to talk you through what's going on, to be sharing some memories and so forth. My name's Rob McNichol. I'm joining you rather poignantly from the Gordon Sparks press box at Home Park, which we named in Gordon's honour really rather recently, and pleasingly. He got to come and visit, have his picture taken, and was, I know, very moved by the dedication. And I'm really, really pleased he was able to see that before we lost him very sadly recently. During the build-up to this, we'll be having a chat to Chris Arrington, who knew Gordon as well as anybody from a broadcast media perspective. And Chris will be sharing some stories from some memories as we go along. We'd love to hear from all of you are watching via this stream. You can put your comments, as I see some of you are doing already, and we'll read out plenty of those as the morning goes on, because this is a very unique occasion. I don't think you get too many broadcasters that touch people in the way that Gordon did, and the fact that Home Park is being opened up for this occasion. There's already, as you can see on the screen to the right hand side, there's already, I would say, a good 100 people or so inside the Devonport end already, and getting their seats, wanting to pay their respects to Gordon. And as I say, as many of you are already doing, so please do keep those comments coming as the morning goes on. Jasper says, amazing Radio Devon presenter ever. Gordon Sparks, rest in peace. Paul Squire is absolutely right. Sparksy would have loved the recent Exeter game, the score, the excitement, Sky Sports, and the way we came back from being behind twice. That was for you. Yeah, it felt very poignant, didn't it? It's a very difficult one, isn't it, to talk about football as if it's important as life, because we all know it isn't, and we all know the oft trotted out Bill Shankly quote, but it was a huge, huge part of Gordon's life, so I don't think it should be cast aside. And we all know how important football was to him, but particularly Argyle was to him. And the very fact that it's even within Home Park, I'm sure would have humbled him greatly. And so, yes, we will talk about football today, because it is a huge part of the story. It's the reason that we all know him. It's the reason I knew him. And our shared love of Argyle, I'm sure everyone that's watching this, well, most people who are watching this, will be Argyle fans. And there'll be some people beyond, because obviously Gordon's reach went far beyond just Plymouth Argyle. The family from Radio Devon, of course, as well, where he became a fixture in mid-mornings across the region. So I'm sure there will be plenty of you. Let us know when any stories that you have from having met Gordon, or from listening to his shows, bits of commentary that you are most fond of. Just lots of comments coming in saying R.I.P. to Sparksy, and say where you're all tuning in from. Hockey Horns UK says, fly high Sparksy, forever my favourite presenter, always going to hold a special place in my heart. And lots of the green hearts as well, which have come to symbolise Plymouth as a whole. Steve G, Chris will remember me from blood donation sessions in the past, watching and sending respects as I can from Australia. It's very telling. What time is it in Australia? It must be late at night tuning in for this one. And again, that just shows the esteem. Malcolm Thompson says he can't make it today, but refers to Gordon having hosted the night with Argyle legends to remember Paul Mariner. And now maybe they can meet up again. R.I.P. from all those at the Kevin Beattie Foundation. So that's presumably someone from Ipswich Town side of things as well, which is lovely to hear from other clubs. I think everybody that has an affiliation to a football team, a local football team, understands what it is to follow them locally or from afar. And when you have a voice like Gordon's, and I don't just mean the actual voice, the actual sound of what we heard, but the way he connected with people. You could absolutely understand where he was coming from, absolutely understand that he was one of us. He was a true supporter, and I think it doesn't matter who you support, you can understand the connection that someone like that can build up, but very few can do it. And obviously we know just how successfully he managed to do it. Ryan Slaney says, always listen to Argyle on BBC Devon when they were playing away. Gordon Sparks used to get right into the game. That is absolutely true, absolutely true. When, again, as I mentioned before, Chris Arrington will be joining me shortly. And Chris, I'm sure, will have some great stories about the times that they worked together for many years all over the country. as a presenting duo on various different games. I'll save any of those particular anecdotes for when Chris joins me, because that's very much his domain. Chris knew Gordon a lot better than I did. But you know, I have to say that, you know, as someone that has done my own little bit of commentary, I don't consider myself to be anywhere near his standard, but I did do some Argyle commentary for Radio Devon and for Argyle TV, and you're always aware of who has come before you, and it was always something that I and Charlie Price, who has also done a lot, Charlie's done more than me as well, but we've always realised that there's no point trying to be Sparksy, there's no point trying to be another Sparksy, because there just can't be. And so we all try and do it in our own way, but you know, I am literally standing in a press box which is called the Gordon Sparks press box, and just across to my left there is a banner which says the Sir Gordon Sparks stand. And for any of you that have seen that quite recently, that banner, that's not a new thing. That's at least, I would say, 15, 20 years ago that banner was being raised. And I think that's a pleasing thing, isn't it? I hope that, in fact I know that Gordon understood and was humbled by the esteem he was held in by the Green Army, and I think that's, well, there's not many pleasing things about these last couple of weeks, of course, but it's at least it's something that I hold quite special, that at least he knew that, and we're now doing our best to remember him in the way that we can here at Home Park. So if you are just joining in, very, very welcome to our coverage today of the funeral of Gordon Sparks, starting at 11:30. I can tell you that the ceremony itself, the order of service, is certainly, as we've already mentioned, has got a football flavour. The nice, I thought there was a humorous undertone to the announcement that Gordon would absolutely enjoy everyone turning up in football kit as long as it wasn't Manchester United. He never lost that distaste for Manchester United. But looking across to the Devonport end at the moment is a fair smattering of green and white. Plenty of people wearing their Argyle kit, and again, it's not the sombre occasion that some funerals would be. It's certainly not. That's not. I don't like the phrase. It's what they would have wanted. It's always a difficult one, but Gordon absolutely would have stipulated that people come and celebrate Plymouth Argyle and the green and white, and indeed the city of Plymouth and the counties of Devon and Cornwall, all of which meant plenty to him. But yes, plenty of football references throughout the order of service. Nicely and fittingly, things will begin with Semper Fidelis. Not only is that the song which Argyle have come out to, or all of my Argyle supporting life, which is about 3 decades now, but you know, it literally means always faithful, and that's part of what it is to be a football fan, and it's certainly a motto that I know that Gordon would have adhered to, so that's rather fitting. Our chaplain, Arthur Goode, will take charge of the ceremony. He'll welcome everybody and hold things together. There will be a couple of songs, hymns, whichever you wish to term it as, but Abide With Me, which we know so familiarly from the FA Cup final, will be sung, and later on You'll Never Walk Alone, which is obviously absolutely intrinsically linked with Liverpool Football Club, but its message, you know, as to football fans, to people just generally, that of hope and togetherness and so forth, obviously rings true as well. So those will be sung during, and we'll also be hearing some tributes from those that knew Gordon best. So we'll be hearing from Chris, who I said will be joining me shortly up here as we build up, but he will be speaking. There will be some of Gordon's colleagues from the BBC, from Argyle first team coach Kevin Nanscoville, and of course from Gordon's wife Heather as well. So we'll be hearing from those all during the ceremony itself. And this, I think the thing that's going to get, well, it's already getting to me, you can probably hear from my voice, but I think the thing that's going to get to me most is the closing music, which is Rockin' All Over the World by Status Quo, which perhaps is not your typical funeral conclusion, but, well, first of all, Gordon wasn't your typical man or commentator, but also we all knew about his love of Status Quo. If you've been coming to Home Park lately, you'll have heard that song played a lot after the final whistle, and that's one of the reasons why. It's also a great song, let's face it, but it's something we know that he would have really appreciated. So that's a little bit of what we've got in store for you once we get to 11:30. Let's have a little look at see some more comments, shall we? As I say, feel free to put comments into the comment section on this YouTube stream throughout the build up to this. Katie is watching from Kent, grew up listening to Sparksy's amazing commentary and was lucky enough to become friends. I'm already missing our random Argyle travel chats over coffee. Stephen says, a great commentator, made every match exciting, a huge loss for Plymouth. And yeah, I think it's easy for me to just stray on to saying about Argyle, because that's what most of us would associate, you know, certainly myself growing up and listening to Gordon, and when you couldn't make it to a game, but also, as I said before, the wider reach he had via his terrific shows on Radio Devon, which were just so engaging. And people just, again, that's local radio broadcasting is such an art, and talk about having an innate feel for it. So it's lovely that more than just the Plymouth Argyle diaspora know about Gordon. So Shane says, Gordon was my companion on my daily 50-minute commute to work every morning for many years. I'll miss his infectious enthusiasm for the love of the game, and his love of the game, and he'll be sadly missed. Absolutely spot on there, Shane. Various people just paying their respects in various ways. It's lovely to see. Nick says, being an egg-shaped ball fan, I followed Argyle on the radio. Sparksy was a superb communicator with passion and enthusiasm which made you want to listen. Thank you for all the pleasure you gave to all. Zoe has put her comment as a football chant. Again, always nice to make it into a football reference. Thank you for that one, Zoe. That's really nice. Mark Schuttel makes a reference to the fact that as well as Argyle, Gordon had a big love for the Cleveland Browns. He would frequently go out there and watch their season openers, as I recall. I don't know how well, Chris will join me in just a second, and he might be able to tell me where Gordon's love for Cleveland in particular came from. But certainly we'll mention the Browns a little bit as well as mentioning Argyle. And indeed, let's bring Chris in. Chris has just joined me in a lovely retro Argyle kit from around about 20 years ago.
Yeah, I think it was late 1990s, Rob. It's the white shirt with the green pinstripe.
Absolutely.
Am I allowed to mention who the shirt sponsors were that day?
Very good. No, of course you are. It's
the local newspaper were the sponsors at the time, a Patrick one, so you'll probably remember it. White with green pinstripes. I don't think it was a particularly successful season for Argyle the year they wore this one, but
I think it might have been a home kit that turned into an away kit, if I remember rightly. I think you might have worn that as an away kit. But I was just saying, Chris, that as well as Argyle, which we're going to talk about extensively in just a second. Thank you for joining me, by the way.
My pleasure. Yeah, nice to have the opportunity to join you today, Rob.
We've talked a lot about Argyle so far, but yeah, it's been mentioned already in some of our comments that Gordon was a huge Cleveland Browns fan. I know you're a big American football fan yourself. You're a San Francisco 49ers
exactly.
man. Where did Gordon's love of Cleveland come from? It seems quite an obscure one to me.
Yeah, I think he was like a lot of people when American football became sort of a little bit more mainstream in the UK in the 1980s. You needed to find a team to support, and obviously because we're the other side of the Atlantic, there wasn't any obvious attachments, and I think the Browns sort of came to Sparksy's attention. And I mean, I think I just caught you there. He used to go to Cleveland every year, start of the season. Even this season, I know he'd hoped to go and see the first 3 games of the regular season. So I think the first one was in Cleveland. I think he was then going to drive down to Pittsburgh or somewhere like that, and then watch the 3rd game on a Thursday night and then fly back. But obviously that didn't happen. But no, he was a big Cleveland Browns fan, and he got to meet quite a few of the local media people out there because of his radio connections. I think he ended up on breakfast shows in Cleveland.
That doesn't surprise me.
You know, the Englishman, became a Cleveland Browns fan. He met a lot of the current players and past players. And the amount of Cleveland Browns paraphernalia, merchandise, clothing. I mean, poor old Heather must have loads and loads of Cleveland Browns bits and pieces in the house now, sort of thing. So he was a massive Cleveland Browns fan. So
I get the feeling that he was a massive fan of almost anything he threw his enthusiasm behind. That was his character, wasn't it? I don't think I've ever known Gordon not be enthusiastic about anything. particularly Argyle, Cleveland, but also for local radio and for Status Quo and for everything else. That was part of his character.
Yeah, I've been asked to say a few words in the service today, and we've touched on the American football Status Quo. Yes, you're absolutely right. He was passionate about things. That was the thing. He cared about the city of Plymouth. He was passionate about Argyle. He loved his Cleveland Browns. In recent times, he became a big fan of Plymouth Parkway, and went there quite a bit. And we saw him there for the pre-season game at the start of July, Rob, and Gordon wasn't particularly well at the time then, and it was quite a big effort for him to get along to that game, but he loved going along to see Parkway play Argyle and all the people that saw him that day. So you're right. He loved his music. There's one of the really admirable things about him was that yes, he was the voice of Argyle, and yes, he was very closely connected with this football club, but his life just wasn't that. He had a much broader life away from football, and his life crossed many different people, and that's why, I suspect with the live stream today, yes, a lot of the focus is on Argyle and Home Park and everything like that, but there's going to be a lot more people that will be interested and want to pay their respects and show their tributes to Sparksy away from the football club.
Absolutely, and I think just the fact that we're even having this conversation and there's people listening to us right now, you could absolutely understand someone from outside of, the local area saying, this is for a commentator, but it's not for a commentator, is it? It's for Gordon, and there is a distinction and there is a difference, and so that means something. Let me ask you about something that you wrote for the Herald website, for the Plymouth Live website. In a very, very quick aftermath of when we learned about Gordon's passing on that Sunday morning. I read it, and I sent you a text at the time and said how good I thought it was, and I wouldn't say that unless I meant it. I thought it was excellent, but it must have been very, very hard to write. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, no. I mean, I knew Sparksy wasn't well, but I think like most people, the suddenness of it did catch me by surprise. And so it's one thing sort of thinking that something might happen, but another thing completely differently when it actually does happen, and quite quickly. So yeah, it hit home. It was the morning after the Milton Keynes game. My wife and I had been to a wedding reception in Gloucester, actually, so we were sort of trying to get back from Gloucester back to Plymouth. We heard the news. I mean, that was one of the things that struck me, driving home down the M5 that day, listening to Radio Devon, and they basically had 8 hours of live radio with people wanting to phone up Radio Devon and pay their tributes to Sparksy. 8 hours of local radio. There was no filling. There was no, earlier on today we heard from so-and-so. It was constant, tribute. And I thought that was really good. And so I wanted to write something about Sparksy because I knew him well, and we spent many happy times in press boxes like the one we're sat in now, Rob. But you do feel a bit of a pressure that you want to do the man justice, and you don't want to rush into something and it all to be a bit garbled and not coherent. I wanted to process it and try and strike the right tone, because yes, it's somber when you're writing about somebody that's just passed away, but also there was no point being too somber about it, because that wasn't Sparksy. He wasn't a somber man.
No, he wasn't.
So you sit down and try and process in your mind what you want to say, and in some ways I actually found it quite useful, Rob, because I think I was still a bit in shock, and actually sitting down and writing it on the Monday morning I found quite helpful, because it made it sort of seem it might help me process the situation, and then when I read it I actually felt better, because it brought back so many nice memories, and so I think it helped me, and hopefully it gave an insight to lots of people about what Sparksy was like, because we were fortunate to know him quite well, weren't we?
Yeah.
But lots of people might have met him once or twice, or just said hello, or seen him in the shops, or but everyone in Plymouth felt they knew Sparksy. And so yes, when I was writing it, I wanted to make sure that everyone who read that realised how important he was, not just to Argyle, but to people in Plymouth in general. So yeah, I've had some nice feedback, which is really, really nice. But yeah, I wanted to do the man justice.
Well, you did. Absolutely, you did. And the point you make about people feeling that they knew him even if they didn't or have only met him once, I think part of that comes through, again, we knew the man, you knew him a lot better than I did, but we knew him, and when you listen to Gordon on the radio, particularly on the general Radio Devon shows, you know, his mid-morning shows or whatever, that was him. That wasn't a radio persona. It wasn't you know, your classic, you know, someone putting on an act when they're on the radio. That was just Gordon putting a headset on and talking to everybody. I think that's why people grew close to him, not just with the football, but because of that, because that was just him talking to his friends on air.
Honestly, 2 weeks before he passed away, Nicky and I went to see him at his house. And we'd been shopping in town. We went to Marks and Spencer's, got some cakes. He made a cup of tea for us, so we had cakes and tea, sat in his living room. And you're spot on, Rob, because we were talking there. And honestly, we could have been listening to his breakfast show. We sat there and had a conversation, and to be fair, it was more Sparksy than us, even though his voice was a bit croaky at the time. But he was talking about, and we could have been listeners taking part in his breakfast show, because he was sort of guiding us through the conversation, and we talked about Argyle, obviously, but there was other bits and pieces we talked about as well. He just had that natural way about him, and that's a tremendous skill of radio broadcasting that I admire as a newspaper journalist, because I couldn't do that. But they are just so natural. They can talk. Their voice sounds right. You know, when you listen to Sparksy on the radio at home, you know, he was inside your house. He was a friend. You know, if you were, you know, in the living room, or, you know, having a shower in the morning, or whatever it might be, he would be there. And that attachment that people have with local radio personalities is a very strong one, and I don't think working in any other media is quite the same. TV or newspapers is not the same. If you've got a breakfast show on a local radio station, you can become a friend of an awful lot of people, not just in Plymouth. I mean, he was on Radio Devon, so I know there's been lots of tributes from people up in North Devon, East Devon, you know, all around the county, and you know, he, you know, even the BBC Director General paid a very glowing tribute to Sparksy. Now, I'm sure that doesn't happen to everybody.
I wouldn't think so.
And I mean, look at us here today, Rob. You know, what was it, Monday night? I keep wanting to say Tuesday night, but it was Monday night. We were here, full house at Home Park. Argyle flying high at the top of the table. You know, wouldn't it be great if we could sit here in April and see a promotion? And I know there's a long way to go, and Stephen Schumacher would tell me, keep your feet on the ground, don't get carried away. But if Argyle could go on and get a promotion this season, you know, what a fitting tribute that would be to Sparksy. It
really would. And I've mentioned just before you came on that it's a difficult one today, because you talk about, you know, as you said, someone's life. It's about more than football. And we all know, you know, football isn't the be-all and end-all, but it was a huge part of Gordon's life, and he would be thinking in those ways. He would be, you know, wishing us every success.
He would not want us all to be somber all day.
No.
When the service is taking place, obviously, then that's when we get our chance to pay our respects.
Well, most definitely.
But beforehand and afterwards, I think it's a great opportunity for people to come together, share their memories of Sparksy, talk about him, and you know, remember the good times. You know, it is a sad occasion in a way, but I've just come in from the back of the Devonport end, Rob, and I've seen Ronnie Mojay, Kevin Hodges, John Uzell, Colin Wheatcroft, the former groundsman.
I remember Colin, yeah. I've been told Graham Coughlin's here.
Yeah. I mean, that was just in me sort of. I'm expecting quite a few ex-players. Drew Savage, I know, is down today, who did a lot of commentaries with Sparksy on Radio Devon. There's going to be loads of ex-players. I mean, it is sad that we're here because of Sparksy's death, but he is bringing together so many people, so many Argyle fans, so many people from Plymouth. So it's when I was writing the piece, and when we've all done tributes, it's trying to strike the right balance between showing respect and treating it as a serious, you know, situation, but equally we've got to try and remember the good times, the memories, the happy times, and you know, I knew Sparksy pretty well, and I'm sure if I'd had this conversation with him, he would have said, make sure you don't sit there and be miserable and doom and gloom and everything. He would want us to celebrate the memories, the great commentary moments. You know, Argyle, I have to say, you know, did a fantastic sort of clip montage of goals and Sparksy's commentaries to them. That was brilliant. I mean, I'm sure most people you know, following the live stream today will have seen that. But if you haven't, go on the club social media sites and see that, because the balance of Sparksy's euphoria and excitement, and then the goals and, you know, iconic moments in Argyle's history. You know, you look back over the last 25 years, you know, Marino Keefe scoring win 3-2 at Swindon, you know, 3-0 and Evans here against QPR, all those great, Peter Hartley at the Devonport end, which is, you know, filling up with lots of fans already. Robin, we've still got a good half an hour before the service starts. It's yeah, good memories, good memories.
Most definitely. Yeah, if you are just joining us, it's 11 o'clock. The funeral of Gordon Sparks will be starting in half an hour's time. We are here at Home Park, just building up to that. We will cover the whole thing here on this live stream. I can see that there's over 500 people on the stream already, Chris, and we're half an hour away from the funeral. I'm sure that's going to grow. Thank you all for joining us for that. And you've met, so Robert Nicol and Chris Arrington here with you right now. And Chris, you commentated with Gordon a lot over the years.
Yes.
In a minute, I'm going to ask you how that started and how you found that. But I want to go with the headline more than that. Is that what are the games, or the game particularly, that stand out for you as, that you did alongside Gordon?
Rochdale was a good one when Argyle were promoted. It was the first championship winning season under Paul Sturrock. 2002. It was a Tuesday night in March. Argyle were flying high, as Argyle fans will remember. We went up there on a Tuesday night and won 3-1. And Scotland is quite a small ground, and the press box is right on top of the tunnel as the players come on and off the pitch. And yeah, the scenes at the end of the game, the players were... Sparksy could literally wave to the players as they were coming off the pitch,
and did,
and then they clambered up the seats. It didn't take very long. It was easy to get to, and he did countless interviews with the players as they were coming off, and just it was the immediacy of the moment. The players had just left the pitch, and the players knew that Sparksy was a massive Argyle fan, and that the exuberance of the Argyle players with the exuberance of Sparksy was just fantastic, just to see it all, and the high fives and the celebrations. And I do remember that one, just because it was, and Argyle went on to win the league that season as well. But I do remember sitting next to Sparksy that night and thinking, wow, this is good.
That's a great moment. And how did you start doing that? When did you first do it?
Well, I think that it was in the days when. Basically, almost before the internet was invented, Rob, which almost seems impossible to believe, doesn't it? But so when I used to go along to, I've always been going home and away with the Herald over 26 years now it is, and in those sort of relatively early days, late 90s, early 2000s, pretty much all I had to do on a match day was sit there with a notepad and a pen, and make a few notes, interview people afterwards, and then I had my leisure to write up the reports, because the Evening Herald's deadline was 7:30 on a Monday morning, so I didn't have a strict deadline. So I had a bit of spare time, and BBC Radio Devon started doing more and more commentaries, in partly because of the popularity of Sparksy's broadcasting, and it became a must-listen-to thing if you weren't going to the games. So BBC Radio Devon were looking to have a co-commentator, and I was always guaranteed to be there, because I would be going in my role as a football reporter for the Herald. So I'd always be there. I had the spare time, you know, that I was only really sitting there making notes. It wasn't like now where you're doing live blogs and reports and tweeting and things like that. And also, obviously, Sparksy and I knew each other before that anyway. You know, we'd got to know each other through Argyle and sitting in the old press box, which is just where that Sir Gordon Sparks stand is situated, at the back of the stand. So we got to know each other. I had the spare time. We started doing it, and I've said to lots of people, I just think because we were quite good friends and we had a lot in common, we could sort of bounce each other off each other a bit. Sparksy was the exuberant, lively one, and I would try and calm him down as best I could. I wasn't always successful in that, but tried to calm him down a bit and provide the sort of the balance. And I'd like to think that it worked well over the years, and that we sort of struck up a good partnership. I love doing it. consummate professional when it comes to broadcasting. You've done broadcasting, Rob, yourself. You know, when you've got a producer shouting in the ear all the time with score updates, or can we go over to play more, can we do this and can we do that, and all the time you've got to keep speaking and describe what's going on. And one of the phrases that always stuck in my mind about Sparksy was that he always said that he was painting pictures with his words, and that's not easy when you're watching a game of football that's full on and you're trying to describe what's going on so that people at home can picture it in their mind what's happening. All the time you've got a producer in your ear. A lot of the away games, in particular, the press box was like in amongst all the fans, so you've got all the noise of the fans, the hubbub. Brenda at Accrington's a story.
I was going to bring up Brenda.
Brenda is legendary, you know, at Accrington, and so there's all this noise and commotion and everything. And anyone who listened to Sparksy commentating wouldn't know that all of that was going on around him. And I loved doing the commentaries with him. In the end, my work commitments with blogs and things like that, it just got too much. And but the last time that Sparksy and I had a conversation on radio was at Wembley in the playoff final.
Okay, I saw that picture recently, yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't do the co-commentary with him that day, but we had a chat before the game. We sat in the press box, and that was Sparksy's last game before he decided to sort of concentrate on the breakfast show and things like that. But I remember saying to him, you know, we started off doing commentaries at Macclesfield and places like that, and look, here we are sat at Wembley today. Now we know that the playoff final didn't go the way we wanted it, but it almost felt quite nice in a way that our little partnership that we'd had all of the years, it had taken us from some sort of lower league grounds in England, and there we were that day at Wembley, the home of football. Although, again, he wouldn't have called Wembley the home of football. He'd have said where we're sat right now, Rob, is the home of football. I
think football can have a second home. I think football's important enough to have that. There can be a second home. Yeah. We'll come to some of your comments a little bit later on, because Chris will have to leave me in a little bit to go and get ready for his participation in the ceremony. But I wanted to mention this because it's just come in. Chris, I'll come back to some more comments in a little while, but Lisa Hartwell says, when the Quo plays, I hope everyone foot stomps.
Yes.
At Plymouth Sound, I presume Lisa worked with Sparksy at Plymouth Sound. At Plymouth Sound, if you were in the studio next to him, you'd know when the Quo was on, because the foot stomping would start and the studios would vibrate. Yeah.
Well, we had Quo after the game here well, that was last Tuesday, wasn't it, Rob?
We've done it for I think the last 3 or 4 games. It's been at some point in the aftermath.
Yeah, I remember hearing that, so that was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And back to the commentary thing, I was going to mention, I'd actually forgotten her name. I was going to see if you could remember her name, but yeah, you're right, it was Brenda. So the Accrington commentary position was very, very near the pitch, not a very big stand, so it's very near the pitch, and as you say, literally the row in front, Accrington fans. And Brenda always had the seat in front of the commentary position, as I recall, because I was next to you a few times in that spot. Very passionate fans and you know, really behind their team, but there was never the least amount of animosity. Quite the opposite, actually. There was quite a fond relationship there, and that I would be interested to know at the other 22 games a season what that's like, because I bet it's not quite as fun as it would have been between her and Gordon. Well,
I can give you two examples of that then, Rob. That, you know, the Accrington one, yes, Brenda was a lady who more senior, very friendly,
lovely,
sat right in front of where, because the BBC local radio stations tend to have their own allocated seats in their press box, so it doesn't matter whether you're from Radio Devon, Radio Cumbria, wherever it might be, that's where you sit when you go to Accrington. And so Sparksy would always sit behind Brenda. I think that Sparksy would talk to anyone. So
he would.
Brenda used to bring along, I think they're called Uncle Joe's mint balls. They're a sort of sweet that you get up in Lancashire. It's a sort of Wigan Bolton.
It could have been a punk band as well.
Well, it could have been. Yeah. It wouldn't be surprised if it was. But so she used to bring mint balls, and I think they sort of got talking and swapped. She gave him some mint balls, and every year we would go there, and we played Accrington quite a few times. You know, it was almost like two best friends catching up, and they'd have a chat, and you know, once the game started, you know, I'm sure he mentioned Brenda a few times in the commentaries. You know, what did you think of that, Brenda? And it was bringing the personal touch, the human touch to commentaries, because like you said, at Accrington, Rob, you're literally about 4 rows back from the pitch. I mean, you are really close. You could almost reach out and touch the players if they're taking a throw in. So yeah, he got on very well with Brenda there. I do remember her. And at most games, you know, if you're away from home and you're surrounded by home fans, you know, they're used to the local radio opposition being there. I do remember one time at Stockport County at Edgeley Park where Argyle had won quite convincingly, and Sparksy was giving it full beans at full time. You know, it was, I think it might have been 3-0 in an FA Cup tie, 03-04, something like that. Argyle fans may remember better than me, but he was giving it full beans after the game, and as some of the fans were leaving, they were not happy, and they told him they weren't happy, and there was a few choice words aimed in his direction, and you know, fortunately they're probably far enough away that the BBC didn't have to bleep anything out, but I do remember they weren't too happy with the way he was celebrating, but of course he just brushed it all off and carried on as normal. But that was one of the few times where, you know, there was a little bit needle. I
recall one at Northampton.
Yes.
At Northampton, there's almost like a little dais at the back of the stand that he was behind, but we scored very early, I think, as I recall, 4 or 5 minutes into the game, and obviously, as you would do, Argyle are in front. And the gentleman in front stood up for no apparent reason, because he was a Northampton fan, but he stood up, and I think Gordon maybe put his arm on his shoulder just to try and ask him to sit down, and the guy wheeled round, don't put your hands on me, and it was a very unnecessary reaction from, what Gordon did was harmless, and the guy, it was obviously because his team had gone 1-0 down, but I do recall, as you say, the language was a little bit fruity. Were you with him that night, or were you just close by? I was a couple of seats away to the right.
I remember that quite vividly, actually, Rob, now you mention it. So I think I was, actually, Yeah,
because I would imagine whoever was with him would have had to have filled a little bit.
I think it was Louis Alessandra scored. It was an early goal that day. But, I mean, the vast majority of, when you went to grounds and you were surrounded by away fans, it didn't faze people. They were used to it, and I think they actually quite enjoyed listening to it sometimes, so. From a different perspective, and but no, it was great fun to go to these games and see some fantastic moments, some fantastic games. I'll always remember his commentaries from a game at Norwich when Akos Bazaki scored with almost 2 identical free kicks, which hit the crossbar and came down over the goal, and that was when Argyle were that team with Akos and Halmosi and Hales and Ebanks Blake and Norris and Capaldi, and what a great team they were in the Championship. And I used to think, crikey, me and Sparksy, we get to go along to some great grounds, see Argyle play really well, and we get paid to do this. I mean, this is a good job, and obviously Sparksy and I and you have seen some less good days as Argyle have had their ups and downs, but I think he always appreciated, for somebody born in Plymouth, a lifelong Argyle fan, to have the life he had with the close connection with the club, to get to meet all the people. As I say, there'll be, I don't know how many players, there'll be loads of ex-players here today.
We're hoping to pick a few out. Obviously, you can see that we've got some cameras on the Devonport end. If you see any wander across the screen, do shout me, and we'll try and pick them out for you folks. But it is a great mark, isn't it? Yeah,
I know that sort of area which has been kept a little bit free at the moment. I think there's going to be a few ex-players in there. So if we see anyone sort of walking in towards that area, like I say, I walked in with Ronnie Mosier. I saw him fairly recently for the Jack Leslie statue unveiling, but I know he was pleased to hear. I saw Simon Hallett's here. He was down at the front. I don't know if you can see. There's a group of people just on the left at the front there. I think Zach Newton, the secretary's there. I think Simon was around there.
I think I can see Neil Warnock actually.
Yeah,
just saw Neil Warnock to the left of the screen, just above the iTech branding on the front there.
Neil, fresh from his appearance on Sky TV on Monday night. Every time I looked at the recording of that, Rob, there was Neil front and centre, and sat next to Andrew Parkinson in the director's area, enjoying the game. I
looked over and saw one C. Arrington at some point as well.
Oh, so,
yes. If we want to bring that up.
Yeah, that was. But no, so I would expect there'll be a few other managers, and Kevin Hodges, as I say, I saw a former manager, player. I think that area to the right is where people are generally coming in, Rob. So if people look there, that's probably where you'll see people coming in, and. You mentioned Graham Cochran. That's good to know. Of course, recently appointed the new manager of Newport County, so he's not a million miles away. But yeah, there's going to be so many people here that Sparksy admired and respected. Ex-Argyle players, coaches, club staff as well. I mean, Sparksy, I know, really appreciated the chance to become a club ambassador. after he sort of finished commentating on Argyle, and he would entertain people, wouldn't he, down in Club Argyle and do the meet and greet. And,
absolutely.
And he was involved in sort of various sort of fans forums, and so although the commentary sort of finished in 2016, he was still a massive part of the football club. Probably closer than ever before, sort of thing. So
very true.
It's it's nice to know that so many people are joining in the live stream, because it's a Wednesday morning. It's not easy for people to get away from their work or travel down to Plymouth, and this is a great thing for people to be able to sort of feel they've taken part in this. I mean, to have a funeral at a football ground, Rob. I mean, I can't ever recall anything like this happening before.
No,
Can you?
Good morning, everybody.
Absolutely
it's
not.
lovely to see so many of you here with
This
us
is
this
Arthur
morning.
Goode, Club
We
Chaplain,
are
just
due
addressing
to
everybody.
start at past. This is just your quarter of an hour call. Make sure your phones are on silent. And if there anyone is still in the lobbies, do come forward and find your seats. We'll start in a quarter of an hour. Thank you.
Arthur will be taking charge of the ceremony as things get underway. Chris, I know you'll need to go shortly because you need to get yourself prepared. I've got a couple quick ones for you before you go.
Yep.
One is that did you know that the first day that you and I ever met was also the first day I ever met Sparksy? Do you know where that was?
Oh, no, that's a good question. It's going to be a few years ago, Rob.
I think it was 2003. It was in a pub outside of Brentford's Griffin Park.
Was it?
And that was the first time that
Your dad used to play for Brentford, didn't he?
He did. I was there on Saturday,
Yeah.
amazingly. I was there watching them play against Wolverhampton. But
that was the Griffin Park, and Sparksy would definitely mention this. The pub with four pubs on each, a pub on each corner of the ground.
That's right, pub on each corner.
He would definitely mention that. 2003, so okay, yeah. Okay.
I remember there was a very early Luke McCormick game. It was 0-0.
Yes.
Luke is one of Luke's early games.
Yeah, that might have just been immediately after poor old Roman suffered quite a serious knee injury. And that was, I think, the first game Luke played after Roman had been injured. And then Luke stayed in the rest of the season.
I think that's right.
And we ended up being promoted.
I think that is correct.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention that because it was just a weird part in all of our lives.
Wow, that's 20-odd years ago, Rob. I hate to...
19, nearly 20. I'm going to hold on to it still being just less than 2 decades.
Yeah.
But that was that one. But also, just finally, before you go... What does it mean to you? You've got a piece of paper in your hand at the moment, which means you're going to go and stand in front of everybody and speak. That must mean a lot to you, that you've been asked to do it and that you're willing to do, because only a few people are going to do it, and it must mean the world to you. Very
honoured, privileged. Heather, Gordon's wife, asked me to. I'm doing it on behalf of his friends. Mm-hmm. The piece I've written and hopefully will be well received is on behalf of all of his friends. So not just me, not just Argyle. I've tried to encapsulate as many of his friendship groups as possible, and that includes the people in Cleveland that maybe hopefully will be following on live streaming. If anyone from Cleveland is, it'd be great to hear, wouldn't it? Because
absolutely.
I know he had lots of friends in Cleveland, and I'd be they might well be early in the morning, I suppose, over there, but you never know. So it's to represent all his friends, try and mention as broad a range of people as possible. I feel very honoured, but I'm doing it on behalf of all of his friends, all of the people that knew Sparksy, all the radio listeners that maybe never even met him, but felt he was a friend. Other people will talk about his Argyle connections and the family and things, but if we can just, in my little piece, mention about all the friends and the lives that, the many lives that Sparksy touched, then that will be a good job done.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you all the very best
Rob.
with it. Thank you very much for joining me for the last
thank you very
half
much
an hour or so.
No, thanks very much for asking me, and it's great to know that people are following the live stream, and it is a sad day, but it's a celebration of a life, and I think we should all think of the good times and the good memories that we've got at Sparksy, because there are certainly plenty of them.
He was, yeah. Gordon was a cricket fan, I understand.
He was.
And
wasn't much of a cricketer, but he was a cricket fan. Earlier on this summer, I went round one morning and we sat and watched the one-off England-India Test match that should have been played during COVID and got delayed, and we sat and that was one of the last times I saw him, and we sat and watched the cricket and had a great tune. We often said that our commentary, we try to almost like base it on a bit of a Test match special sort of. Right. If there's a red bus going by behind the stand, we'd mention it, sort of thing. Yeah. So.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because the thing that people always talk about with with how long you live is about, you know, about having a good innings. Well, unfortunately, his innings was cut short, but Chris, it was a hell of a run rate.
Absolutely.
It was a hell of a run rate. He packed a lot into those 61 years.
He had a sort of Botham, you know, and Ben Stokes sort of strike rate, didn't he, sort of thing. So, yeah, no, it was sad he's no longer here, but yeah, what memories we've all got of him.
No, I hope you would appreciate that analogy.
Yeah.
I'm fairly sure he would.
Yeah.
Chris, I'll let you get off.
Okay, Rob,
thank you so much for doing that.
Join you.
It was yeah, superb, and Chris will now be going off to take his part in the ceremony, which is now around about 11 minutes away. If you are just joining us, because I'm watching the numbers on the bottom of my screen going up steadily as the morning goes on, approaching 1,000 of you now. First of all, let's reset. You're watching the live stream as we build up to the funeral of Gordon Sparks, which is taking place at 11:30 at Home Park. The Devonport end, which as you look on your screen is to the right hand side. In fact, now it's on the full screen itself. Look how busy that is. It's I'm not very good at estimating the sizes of crowds, but a good few thousand, a good few hundred anyway, maybe approaching 1,000 people in the Devonport end at the moment, which shows the mark of respect that everyone would have for Gordon Sparks. The big screen in the corner of the ground as well has Gordon's image on it. It's just to the left of that picture, as you can see at the moment, but it says on it Sir Gordon Sparks. We've taken our opportunity to add that little bit onto his nomenclature, and indeed I am in the Gordon Sparks press box doing this commentary, and to my left there is a banner that says the Sir Gordon Sparks stand. I almost don't need to elaborate on any of that. It says a great deal. Let's have a little look through some of your comments. Comments have been flooding in all morning. I've not been able to get to too many of them because I'm sure you'll enjoy listening to Chris's reminiscence of working alongside Gordon for many, many years. Many of the comments are coming in and simply just saying, you know, there's only one Gordon Sparks, rest in peace Sparksy, that kind of thing, which is all lovely to hear. Thank you to every single one of you for taking the time, not only to tune in today, but also mention in your comments whatever they may be. There's a lot of people saying that they're sorry that they can't be here. Of course, it's understandable, everybody. It's you know, it's not always something you can easily do, but just being with us today means the world to us, and I'm sure will to Gordon's family. I'll pick out a few comments. Green Sunshine says, Sir Gordon's commentary was so good that I would listen back to his commentary on Greens on Screen at the first opportunity after attending the match in person. Rest in peace, Sparksy. Rest in peace, legend. That's a good opportunity for me to mention Greens on Screen, actually. If you haven't heard of Greens on Screen, it's an independent Argyle website, which is probably the best independent football stats website you'll find for any club, not just for Plymouth Argyle, but for any club. It's absolutely fantastic, and as I say, completely independent, and there's lots and lots and lots of clips, amazing amount of clips on there, which Radio Devon have allowed GOS to use over the years. So if you do fancy a trip down memory lane to specific games, you can navigate that website. Give yourself a couple of hours because you'll get lost down the rabbit hole there, but plenty of nice memories in there for you to listen to. Jasper says he remembers Sparksy doing the other half-time results at Home Park. Yeah, that's something we haven't really mentioned too often, actually, that there were times where Gordon acted as the announcer here, either doing announcements at half-time or the team read before the game. Just yet another string to his multifarious bow. Kelly brings it to the family side of things, which of course we should mention. Kelly says he was a wonderful husband to Heather and a great dad to Kirsty and Holly, a great communicator to all audiences. Gordon, you are really loved. And Heather, I'm always here for you. That's a lovely thing for Kelly to say. Just scrolling down, several nice messages from Ryan Sonley, who said that says that Gordon was a true legend, and we were talking earlier on about wanting to. Sorry, here's Arthur again. This is Arthur Goode, Argyle club chaplain. my understanding is that the funeral cars have arrived at Home Park, and Gordon's family and friends will be shortly coming through into the Devonport end, which is why we're taking this pause. Fitting floral tribute there has just been brought in and placed at the front where the ceremony will be shortly taking place. If you are just joining us, thank you very much for being with us here on the live stream of the funeral of Gordon Sparks. We are scheduled to be starting at 11:30, which is in around about 5 minutes time. Those gathered have been asked to stand inside the Devonport end. We are awaiting people joining us. I am going to just read a couple more comments while we do have a moment or two to do so, but I might need to break off quite quickly, as you would imagine. JRRB says what a commanding presence that Gordon had, and told a story that stretched far wider than the football commentary. That's an excellent point. It's made. Ben Ford says we lost a true great. Remember listening to him every match day when he did the radio. You could hear the passion in his voice. That is a word that keeps on coming up, doesn't it? The passion that Gordon had for football and for many aspects of his life. Mike Hughes, Sparksy was the voice of Argyle. His commentaries were full of passion and enthusiasm. I love the interaction between him and Chris during matches, especially during the Luggy era. Yeah, we heard a lot from Chris Arrington here on this live stream as we built up, and Chris will be speaking at the ceremony. The ceremony will include a couple of songs, both which are very intrinsically linked with football. Abide With Me, which we often hear at the FA Cup final. Also, You'll Never Walk Alone, very well associated with Liverpool, but obviously the overtones of the song stretch much further than that. We'll be hearing also from first team coach Kevin Nanskiville is going to be speaking. Chris Arrington, as I've mentioned, from the Herald. Some of Gordon's colleagues from the BBC and his wife Heather will all be paying tribute as the ceremony goes on. And we will begin with Semper Fidelis, which is the song that Argyle have come into for many years. The only way we could possibly start this, of course. So you'll hear in the strains of Semper very shortly. The song that means always faithful. Very appropriate way to we'll be able to begin this ceremony. And we will close with a different sort of tone, but we'll hear the upbeat Rocking All Over the World by Status Quo. two tremendously fitting moments there as the coffin comes into Home Park. First of all, the mix of people both in traditional suits, but also lots and lots of green and white of Argyle, as I'm sure Gordon would have wanted it. And indeed this spontaneous round of applause from the congregation, the huge congregation as you see there in the Devonport end. Don't get that at every funeral, but this is no typical occasion. Argyle fans, football fans, friends of Sparksy paying their tribute in the only way we know how, which was to applaud our friend Gordon Sparks. We'll shortly be hearing from club chaplain Arthur Goode, who will lead us in proceedings. So the next voice you hear will be Arthur's. I can see Roman Laria there in the centre of that shot. Jeff Trudgington as well, a few other former Argyle players, and those connected with the club that are here today. Wonderful to see them, and lovely for all of you to be able to join us. We'll hear from Arthur very shortly.
Please be seated. Good morning, everybody, and welcome. My name is Arthur Goode. I'm the chaplain here at Plymouth Argyle, and it's my honour to lead the service for us all this morning. We welcome Heather and Holly and Kirsty and the family, close friends, colleagues from the broadcasting world, members of the Green Army, of course, and also those of you who are here because you got to know Gordon through listening to him on the radio. Whatever your reason for being here, whatever your connection with Gordon, we thank you for coming. And we'd like to say hello to anyone who is following us online as well. I'm going to welcome up Molly Stewart now, who's going to be the soloist who is going to lead us in the first verse of our song, Abide With Me. The lyrics are going to be on the big screen behind me. So if you'd please like to stand, we're going to hear the first verse sung by our soloist, and then everyone join in for the following verses.
So Molly Stewart will be joining us for this. She is the soloist to sing us Abide With Me.
With me, fast for the eventide, the darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide, when other helpers fail and comforts flee. Help of the helpless, oh, abide
seated. I'd like to introduce to you Kevin Nanskivel, the first team coach, who's going to share some words.
Good morning, everyone. Firstly, I want to say thank you and well done to everyone who has turned out today to give our beloved friend Sparksy a fitting send-off. It speaks volumes about Gordon and the regard not just the Argyle family have for him, but the entire region, that the only place big enough to house everyone who wanted to be here today was a football stadium. A football stadium that now proudly bears his name in the press box where he worked for 32 years. I have been asked today to speak to you on behalf of the club, and I want to express what an honour and a privilege it is to be asked. I could stand here and recite some of Sparksy's historic commentary clips, but we all know them. So I would much rather speak on what Gordon and his personal values and qualities mean to me and what they mean to Plymouth Argyle. Sparksy and I have a few things in common, but I would really like to focus on just two of them: love of family and a shared love of our football club. First and foremost, we are both family men. I saw that in Sparksy every time he spoke with such pride about his wife Heather, his girls Holly and Kirsty, and more recently when he became a grandfather. On behalf of everyone, I'd like to say thank you for allowing us to share in this emotional day, and we are all so sorry for your loss. Secondly, for both Gordon and myself, is our football club, Plymouth Argyle. We have both been privileged to be able to spend so much of our careers working in and around the club we fell in love with on the terraces as children. It can be easy in the pressures of professional football environment or the pressures of live broadcasting to lose that feeling of childlike wonder, the buzz of the turnstiles clicking, the picking up of the matchday programme, the excitement when the players walk out the tunnel to Semper Fidelis. But Gordon never lost his enthusiasm, and his overwhelming sense of positivity is one of the things I remember most about him. Both on and off the mic, Sparks reminded everyone that being able to come to this place with these people every day for work is a blessing. I wonder what Gordon, as a young child attending Argyle games with his father, would have said if he was told that one day a part of the stadium would be named after him and that he would become part of the fabric of our club. Gordon's very first match commentating on Argyle for Hospital Radio came at one of our highest profile matches, the 1984 FA Cup semi-final at Villa Park, where, like many of you in here today, I was on the terraces. As we all know though, heady days like those at Villa Park can be few and far between. Gordon, like me and almost all of you here today, experienced the highs and lows of Argyle and never wavered in the bad times. He made sure when those glorious days came that we all enjoyed them to the maximum. What's more, he introduced thousands of people from Devon and Cornwall to Argyle through his commentaries and reporting. It's through this committed work that he became known as the voice of Argyle, and rightly so. But I think he was more than that. To me, people like Sparksy carry the spirit of Argyle through generations. Although we remained in contact over telephone right until he passed away, the last time I saw Goode was ahead of the game against Ipswich in September of this year, when he was able to see the part of the stadium named in his honour and experience a wonderful win that sent us to the top of the table with barely an empty seat in the stadium. He was endlessly positive about the performance and the direction the club is headed in. He spoke of how grateful he was that Plymouth Argyle had imprinted his name on the building and of how proud he was to have been able to live out a childhood dream for so long. Wherever you are listening from today, Goode, what I would like to say to you is this. Having heard the chants of "There's only one Gordon Sparks" in the away end at MK Dons, having read the thousands of emotional tributes paid to you over social media, television and online in the days since your passing, having seen the displays created in your honour last week at the home game against Shrewsbury and the turnout for you here again today, it is quite clear. You do not need to be grateful to Plymouth Argyle. Plymouth Argyle is grateful to Gordon Sparks. Thank you.
Fantastic words there from Argyle first team coach Kevin Nanskerville. As you can tell, very much from the heart. Kevin knew Gordon very, very well. Next up will be Chris Arrington from the Plymouth Sound.
I'd now like to introduce fellow friend and commentator Chris Arrington.
Thank you, Arthur. Hello, everyone. I'm honoured to be standing here on behalf of Sparksy's many, many friends as we celebrate and remember his life. To a lot of us, Gordon will always be the voice of Plymouth Argyle. He painted the pictures with his words on many iconic moments for the club during his 32 years of radio reports and commentaries. I had the privilege of being the co-commentator to Sparksy on Radio Devon for a number of years, and they are memories that I cherish. We had such fun times together, and I think the two of us being friends away from the press box helped with the rapport we had when we were on air. After calling time on his commentary career in 2016, I know how extremely proud Sparksy was to become involved as the Argyle Club ambassador, and he took his matchday meet and greet duties very seriously. Sparksy made so many friends at Argyle over the years, managers, coaches, players and club staff, with several of them joining him on commentary duties over the years. The Green Army, Argyle's supporters, also took him to their hearts because he was as loyal and passionate about his hometown club as they were, and was able to convey that in his partisan commentaries. But one of the things that I think stands out about the life of Gordon and is testament to his personality is that he had a circle of friends far wider than just the Plymouth Argyle. The staff at BBC Radio Devon, for example, were not just work colleagues, they were friends. The same was true when Sparksy was at Plymouth Sound, the independent local radio station, and before that, when he was at Sweb. During his broadcasting career, he interviewed many, many people about a wide range of subjects. Politicians, charity fundraisers, you name it, and they often became friends too. I know how much he enjoyed learning to drive a bus with Plymouth City Bus as a part of a feature series for Radio Devon, and the friendships he developed with their staff as a result. It was not all work for Sparksy though, far from it. He could never be accused of being the shy and retiring type. He had his Friday night drinking buddies, described to me by Heather as the Grumpy Gets, as well as the Coffin Dodgers and other friends at the Saltram Club. Music, of course, was a huge part of his life. Gordon loved Status Quo and got to know many people through their mutual appreciation of Francis Rossi and his bandmates. Sparksy often used to DJ at the regular Weirdos Punk Disco at the Fortescue pub on Mutley Plain, which was another of the joys of his varied life. While I did not share Sparksy's love of punk music, we both very much enjoyed the NFL and would often discuss the fortunes of our respective teams. He supported the Cleveland Browns, I the San Francisco 49ers. But Gordon was not just an armchair fan of the Browns though, despite being far away from Ohio. He made regular annual visits to Cleveland to watch them play from the part of their stadium known as Dog Pound. The English radio broadcaster became quite a hit in Cleveland, building up a strong circle of friends who he always caught up with on his visits to the States. He even met some famous former Browns players. Back in Plymouth, Gordon and his group of mates would always gather at one of their homes to watch the Super Bowl each year, although I always got the impression it was almost more about the food and drink that they came up with for each other than watching the game itself. It was not just Argyle and the Cleveland Browns that Sparksy supported either. He also became a fan of Plymouth Parkway, the local football team, and I know he will be very much missed by everyone at Bolitho Park. Away from being Sparksy, the local radio personality, Gordon was someone who retained a lifelong connection with school friends and was the sort of approachable, cheerful neighbour anyone would want living in their street. I could go on and on with a list of people whose lives were much the better for having Sparksy in it. So many of us were fortunate to count him as a friend, and that includes his legion of radio listeners who loved being entertained by his amusing ways each morning. His best friend, though, was Heather, his wife for almost 35 years. Sparksy simply could not have been Sparksy without her love, support and strength. Thank you, Heather, for sharing him with us all. I hope that the outpouring of tributes for Gordon from far and wide have been some comfort for Heather, Kirsty, Holly and the whole family. They can count on all of our support going forward. That is what friends are there for. Thank you.
Some lovely words there from Chris Arrington from the Herald, who we heard from earlier on as we were building up. Next we'll hear from some of Gordon's BBC colleagues, Mark Grinnell and Angela Calwaits.
Thank you, Chris. I'd now like to introduce Angela Calwaits and Mark Grinnell, colleagues from the BBC.
Hi, I'm Angela Calwaits. I'm from Radio Devon. I'm here with Mark Grinnell to remember Gordon on behalf of all of his colleagues at the BBC and in commercial radio here in Plymouth as well. What can I say about Gordon? I was lucky enough to work for him, or with him, for almost 10 years, the entire time that I've been working at Radio Devon. I've been his producer, his newsreader, a reporter, and at times I even got to present alongside him. There was definitely never a dull moment. Some of my standout times with him always involved him very much keeping me on my toes. It was that brilliant unpredictability about him. For example, there was a time when I was reading the news, out of nowhere, Angela, why is custard trending on Twitter? So a desperate search ensued all over the internet to try and find out why this was the case. And this did happen a lot, as anyone that read the news with Gordon could say too. He also taught me about sport, particularly football, and I know now more than I ever knew before. But perhaps one of the biggest things that makes me smile about Gordon were his Gordonisms, those little puns and jokes that he'd draw you into. My favourite probably of all time is whenever he played an Adele record. He'd always finish with, "Other computers are available." Many of my favourite times with him were when we were dispatched off to do a story together, like on an afternoon tea event when we went to Torquay to a B&B to sample a really good one, and he completely, utterly put me to shame. He had an encyclopedic knowledge of which forks to use, and believe it or not, how to eat things delicately. I think I belly laughed for about 3 hours. Another time, we went to be volunteers in a tiny Devon village community shop, which I think they probably regretted. Both of us were appalling, but he was desperate to go on the till. Once again, he had the upper hand. He loved it, and every customer that went in there just loved the experience of being served by Gordon. Obviously, though, it isn't just me and the BBC Radio Devon family who miss him so very much. Our first thoughts are always with Heather and Holly and Kirsty and now little Darcy, as well as all of his friends and family. So many friends which are from here, Plymouth Argyle, as well as further afield, all over the country and even America because of that love for the Cleveland Browns. We've also had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of messages, all from listeners of Radio Devon who are so sad about his passing. I've got a couple here that I wanted to read to you, just to show you the impact that Gordon has had. Mark in Oakhampton said he would start work at 6:30 in the morning, and at the time of COVID and lockdown, he'd just started a new job, and he wasn't in a great place. Mark said listening to Gordon in the morning would cheer him up no end, and that Gordon always made him laugh because he actually got his banter. Mark's also a fellow punk and says there will be many imitators, but nobody will ever fill Gordon's boots. Ingrid in Bovey Tracy told us she'd never had the pleasure of meeting Gordon in person, but felt like he was everybody's best friend. She said she was part of a wedding a while ago and they hadn't got anyone to do the flowers, had no hairdressers and were in a right pickle. But she said Gordon did a plea and Radio Devon listeners came to her rescue and said that just showed how much respect Gordon had and how well loved he was and is. And Stan too contacted us. He said he's a lifelong Plymouth Argyle fan and has extremely fond memories of Gordon. As a season ticket holder, Stan would often talk to him. He said Gordon always had time for all walks of life and people. Stan remembers a dinner that was held in the Duke of Cornwall for past Argyle players, and Gordon was the master of ceremonies. He said Gordon was brilliant, he was funny, he was down to earth and talked to absolutely everybody. These are just 3 examples of how much Gordon is already missed, how loved he will always be, and the legacy he leaves behind. We miss you, Gordon. In a moment, we'll hear from Mark. But now, for the last time, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Gordon Sparks on the radio as we all remember him.
Whistle goes. Bujaki again, and there's the bar, and bounces down and a goal. The linesman says it's a goal. Hit the bottom of the crossbar and in. The linesman flagged for it. Dion Dublin, suck on that. Argyle 3-1 up. Great, cross into the area, and Argyle score.
Well, Goode.
Into the penalty area was Goode. He was near the penalty spot, and Argyle are on the board of the Emirates Stadium. Is it yet a game to be had for Argyle? Arsenal 2, Plymouth Argyle 1. The fans are going crazy. Jerry's corner, deep swing on it, and the ball goes in. And it is Hartley who got the touch. Plymouth Argyle are bound for Wembley. Portsmouth have hands down. The defending non-existent from the corner. Hartley there with a touch. It's Plymouth Argyle 1. Portsmouth there.
Very good morning, welcome along to Plymouth Breakfast from BBC Radio Devon in Plymouth. The final hour this morning coming from the city bus which is parked in Seymour Road. So we're on the way in a moment, we're going to go off to Seymour Road. It says driver training, so those of you in the cars at the moment, the front of the bus has driver training. Once we get to Royal Parade we're going to change that. And the first route, Alan, Plympton, did we say first route? 21 to Plympton, departing Royal Parade. 10 past 9.
Kitchen Disco with Gordon Sparks.
We've reached the halfway point of the decade. It is the Kitchen Disco. That's our hashtag on Twitter as well. Hi to Alan in Kings Kerswell, says great music, bringing back memories of school discos at Plymstock Comprehensive and Tuesday nights at the Morley Youth Club. And Ian in Plympton just simply says, thanks for the great music, very much appreciated. It's our pleasure. Brilliant idea this is. We love it, says Iris. Glad you do. It's the 1970s, Sparksy with you, and it's the Quo on BBC Radio Devon. From 1970, Diana Ross. 1970, that's your go now this morning. Thanks for all your lovely messages. Bless you. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Mark Grinnell. I was thinking, it's hard to follow that, isn't it? And I was just thinking, what would Gordon say if he were here now? And it would probably be, boss, watch that step. I work with Gordon at the BBC as his editor at Radio Devon in a room he liked to refer to on the radio as the Marble Office, where he used to trot along after the show. But I first met him 26 years ago at Plymouth Sound Radio. I was thinking today and asking some colleagues and some friends who knew Gordon, what they would say about him, how they would describe him. And I asked friends at work and previously from Plymouth Sound how they would describe Gordon in a word. And with apologies to Heather and the family for some of these. Genuine. Not apologies for that one. comical, unpredictable, jovial, bonkers, disarming, but in a good way, optimistic, my hero. All good words, aren't they? But nothing's going to do justice to the memory, is it? Gordon was unique. He was one-off, and he was someone you had to be around to know or have a relationship with, on the radio, or on the TV, or as a friend. He was an entertainer, on the air and off the air. He was a showman, a sports fan, a husband, father, grandfather, a newsreader, a punk rock aficionado, and for some strange reason, a fan of the Cleveland Browns. He was a connoisseur of continental breakfasts, and one of my favourite memories of Gordon, working with him as his editor, was when he said, "Boss, I'm going to treat you to a continental breakfast." And what he actually meant was a latte and a Costa down on Mutley Plain. Gordon's love, in fact, of lockdown cooking will be forever remembered, as his growing Crest diaries on the radio still make me chuckle now, and I think got many people through lockdown. I think the point of all this really is, however you remember Gordon, pick a word and keep it in your mind. It's because we both worked at the BBC that I'm here today, and everyone in our part of the organisation across the BBC wants to say a massive thank you and a fond goodbye to our friend. He was so much more than someone who works on the radio. He was a friend to both those on and off the air, and as we've heard from Chris and from Angela, we just wish he was here today to see everyone here at his hallowed Argyle ground, where he spent so much of his time watching the game, but also commentating on it. So you've heard the words of Gordon on the air, you've heard the words spoken by his dear colleague Angela, and here's the thing, a number of people all came back with the same words to describe Gordon. You know, I asked them for one word. What one word would you use to describe Gordon? And I think this is my favourite tribute because so many people said it to me. They said the best way to describe Gordon was simply Gordon. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to introduce now Heather and Holly, who are going to say some words for us.
Hello, everyone. This was always Gordon's job, called to us to talk to everyone, talk to you on the radio, and to do our family weddings and funerals, so we felt we needed to fill his shoes for some reason. Before I start, I just wanted to explain the Cleveland Browns thing. It actually was because he got sent to America to cover Elvis Presley's death, the anniversary. So they went to Graceland first, and then they had to go to Cleveland to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And that's where he first went to Cleveland. And Cleveland Browns were a bit of a sort of a losers team, and I think Argyle weren't doing too well at the time, and he felt some sort of association with them, so that's why he went for Cleveland Browns. So that's that reason. Anyway, thank you all for being here today, and for all the love and support that you have shown Gordon over the past few months. Up until the last days, he was able to read all your Facebook messages and messages all over social media, and he knew that people were thinking and praying for him. One of the last things he heard were the chants at Argyle, and that really did make him smile. We would like to say a huge special thanks to Plymouth Argyle for this amazing service here today, and for their support and generosity, and to Arthur Goode for conducting the service, and to Paul Carter for doing our private one later. We thought it would be very fitting to have his funeral here at Argyle, considering it meant so much to him. The Denport end holds special memories, and it's even mentioned in his will to have his ashes scattered here, so he will be back. To celebrate his life today, myself and all his close family are wearing his own personal Argyle shirts, hence why they look like a tent. We'd also like to thank the BBC for their continued support when Gordon became unwell. Both Argyle and the BBC have provided the most amazing tributes to such a wonderful life. We've enjoyed watching them and listening to them all. So many people have also posted tributes, and Gordon would be absolutely blown away by the outpouring of love and grief shown by everyone. You've already heard a bit about his life, but we want to share a few of our own personal family memories of Goode here with you today. Life was always a big joke living with him. We'd have great fun making him jump, as he was so easy to scare, and he'd always shout out the same offensive line, which I won't repeat, when startled. People often got nicknames, such as Bob, Big Old Bird, or Old Dragon, that was my mum. He used to call me Uggs, short for ugly, or Bird, like the January was. He used to say he had the life of Riley, as I would happily let him swan off to America for football or to go on European holidays without having to take me. But he would always ask permission to go anywhere or do anything, even to spend the smallest amount of money, which, as you can imagine, did get a bit annoying. Because at Christmas, I tended to ask for quite practical gifts that could be used in the home, such as things like an ironing board or a drill or a plane. He would then decide to produce jokey gifts to go with it. So one year I got a high-vis jacket, a hard hat, some knee pads, even some special gloves. He really knew how to treat me. And when I had to climb up on the roof, because he would never go there, he'd say, "Where's your hard hat? Where's your high-vis?" Whenever we took family group selfies, he'd always have to position himself sideways on so he looked like a floating head. And on Mondays, he'd make us gather to watch Quizzy Monday, BBC Two's evening of various quiz shows. And when the family couldn't be together, he'd record it for me and text the girls to remind them to tune in. A conversation that didn't mention some sort of sport in any way was a rarity. Even if we looked at him with blank faces, he tried to go more in depth to make us fully understand. Some of it we had no interest in whatsoever, but it didn't mean he would stop. If we ever went anywhere with him, it would take 10 times longer than it needed to. This is because of the amount of times he'd stop and have full-blown conversations with people in the street. Then we'd walk away and I'd say, "Who was that?" And he'd say, "I don't know." Everyone just felt they knew him. This is just a fraction of the silliness that went on at home. But he was also hard-working, loyal, and such a lovely person to be with. He had 2 beautiful daughters, Kirsty and Holly, and he loved us all dearly. He recently became a grandfather, pops to Darcy, and giving her cuddles brought him such joy. He was also a great friend to many, as you've heard, and he'd often be out and about with his various different friendship groups, who he thoroughly enjoyed spending time with. We appreciate the love and support they have shown. As much as you will all miss him greatly in the many different ways, his close family will miss him tremendously as a husband, a father, a grandfather, uncle and son-in-law. We would also lastly like to thank Derriford Hospital and St Luke's Hospice for their attentive care throughout his treatment and stays. Now to Holly.
To many people here, you are Sparksy, a football commentator, but to me, you are my dad and someone far, far greater. The man who would test my sweets so that they wouldn't poison me and have me learning on the buses quotes before I was even 3. On Tuesdays, you dragged me to Argyle reserves. It was always so easy to wind you up and get on your nerves. On Sundays, you dragged me out to a stock car race, and whenever you saw me, it would light up your face. Your wild nights out on the real ale lasted till no longer than 10. And when we had a personal joke, it was brought up time and time again. You loved a big kids' day out for Father's Day, and we'd have to listen to Huey Lewis on the way. You were always so proud of my sister and I hope that will continue as you watch from the sky. I still can't quite believe that this has all happened. You'd be shocked at how many people are saddened. It doesn't really seem real, even though heartbreak is all that I feel. It seems like one day soon you'll just walk through the door and grace us with your presence once more. Though I'm glad you didn't have to suffer very much, even if that means you're no longer here to touch. There are many life events that I'll be so sad for you to miss, just to be there to give me a smile, a hug and a kiss. Dad, I could go on for hours about how much I love you and how amazing I think you are, but for now I will have to settle for you being my biggest and brightest shining star.
You can remain standing because we're going to sing together now, You'll Never Walk Alone.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of a storm, there's a golden sky and the sweet silver song of love. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, for your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on, walk on, with hope in your heart, and you'll never
Please be seated. Gordon Sparks was born on the 12th of March 1961 at Freedom Fields, Plymouth, to Norman and Dorothy Sparks. After the passing of his mum when he was just 10, Gordon was brought up by Norman and stepmum Lillian in Stoke. Dad, Norman, was a former founder member of the Vice President's Club and Secretary of the Shareholders Association here at Argyle. He first took Gordon along to Home Park when Gordon was just 5. Gordon went to Hyde Park Primary, followed by Tamar Secondary School. It might not come as a complete shock to you to hear that as a youngster he got into trouble and he talked too much. An early report from school said nothing will come from him. He started volunteering for Hospital Radio whilst quite young, and we all know about his commentating for the Watford FA Cup final in 1984 for Hospital Radio. But his paid career began with the South West Electricity Board, SWEB. And this is where we get our real-life Gavin and Stacey moment, because Heather was working for SWEB in Exeter, and with Gordon down here in Plymouth, for some reason he found himself transferred to streetlights, and Heather had to ring him every day for an update on the streetlight status. And lo and behold, a friendship struck up, to the point where Gordon suggested that Heather come down this way and that they meet face to face. Now, you might have heard Gordon joking that he had a good face for radio. And Heather spying him from the bus, she very nearly didn't get off. But she's glad that she did. And the relationship, which was already built on the solid foundations of a good friendship, progressed to going to Argyle away matches, Wigan and Darlington that season, I believe. Greater love have no one than this, and they take their man to watch Argyle away at Darlington. In June, Heather moved to Exeter to be with Gordon, and a proposal followed at the Key Club. That was November 1986, and they bought a flat in March 1987. In October 1987, Heather and Gordon were married in Sparkwell Church. In Heather's words, she fell for the voice, as so many of the rest of us seem to do as well. Gordon left SWEB in 1989 to join Plymouth Sound, with whom he was already volunteering. And then Kirsty came along, followed by Holly, and the young family was growing when he was approached by BBC asking if he could do the commentaries for them, and Sparksy on the radio was born. Loyal, generous, trustworthy, hard-working. We've already mentioned Gordon's love of talking and his love of broadcasting, but more than that was his love of people. So many of us will have felt in our conversations with him that we were the most important person in that conversation, because it was never about him. And boy, what a capacity for conversation. How many times I'd walk along Mutley Plain and see him outside Costa, drawing people into his orbit for a chat about Argyle or American football, music, or anything else that was the agenda for the day. And on the radio, when he was interviewing, whether it was a superstar about their latest achievements or a little kid from school talking about conkers, each got the same measure and respect and honour from him. He treated everybody equally. I remember my first conversation with Sparksy on Radio Devon, and how good he was at his job, how effortlessly he guided me through the process. And he made me sound like I knew what I was talking about. So yes, he was that good. Always lots of laughter, always lots of mickey taking. Asking the girls of their memories for Gordon, they both remarked about what a softie he was. Kirsty's first words were, "Daddy is a wimp." And how he took dad jokes to a new level. And some of them survived years in the retelling, as I believe the best dad jokes must. For instance, that's a long way to take a packed lunch. You would have thought that with his commitment to watching Argyle, when added in this love of American football and the Cleveland Browns in particular, you'd wonder how Gordon had much room for hobbies. But he loved his quizzes. We've heard about Quizzy Monday, Mastermind and Only Connect, and finishing up with University Challenge. The fact is that all of us here felt like we knew Gordon well. And in many ways we did. He was an extraordinary person who will be greatly missed. I believe that the Lord Jesus gives us a firm and trustworthy hope in the resurrection, that death isn't the end, rather it's a new beginning. The Apostle Paul writes, "When the perishable has been clothed with the imperishable, and the mortal with immortality, then the saying that is written will come true. Death has been swallowed up in victory. Where, O death, is your victory? Where, O death, is your sting? Thanks be to God, he gives us the victory through Jesus Christ our Lord." And so Gordon is about to continue his journey. This is the bit where we have to say our goodbye, leaving Heather and the family to say their goodbyes at Western Mill. In a moment, Paul, the family's minister from Salisbury Road Baptist Church, will lead them off behind Gordon as they exit to the crematorium. I'm sure you will approve of the choice of music. And we will remain here. Once the coffin has left, we can sit down and there'll be a final video tribute, after which our time here together will have finished. And we'll all exit the way we came in. I need to mention that there's a retiring collection from Mustard Tree Cancer Support Centre, the Chestnut Appeal and St Luke's Hospice. Heather and the family, thank you for sharing Gordon with us. I'm not sure you always had a choice in that, but you've always been generous with him and full of grace. And thank you for letting us gather here together this morning to celebrate and remember Sparksy. Thank you everyone for coming, and thank you to the club, to PL1 Events for the sound and the stage and all the technical bits, to Walter Parsons and to our contributors this morning, Nance, Angela, Mark and Chris. I'm now going to lead you in a prayer. If praying isn't your thing, please bear with me, but I'm sure you'll appreciate the sentiment. And after that, I'll give a blessing, and then the family will lead off. Please, could we stand together? Let us pray. Almighty God, Father of all mercies and giver of comfort, we thank you for the life of Gordon Sparks, for all he gave to this club, to this city, and his friendship to so many. Gordon, we thank you for all you've given to us and for your love of life that was so infectious. As we prepare to say goodbye and let you go on your way, we each hold different memories which we will treasure forever. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to tear down and a time to build. A time to weep and a time to laugh. The steadfast love of the Lord never ceases. His mercies never come to an end. They are new every morning. Great is his faithfulness. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. And the blessing of God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit be upon you and remain with you, now and forever. Amen.
Well, everybody, I don't really know how to follow that, quite frankly. What an emotional occasion, a unique occasion for a unique man. Thank you, Gordon, for everything. Thank you to a few other people as well. Thank you to PL1 Events for setting all this up so fantastically. And it has to be said, a huge well done to all of the speakers. I thought every single one of them was absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much for that. We will remember Gordon in our own way, of course. Personally, I always hoped that one day I would follow in his footsteps to do some commentary. I never actually thought I would be doing this particular occasion today, but I'm very privileged to have done so. And thank you for being with us today. Thank you to every single one of you that's made a comment. Obviously, these will be saved and shared so people can see this. So I think that's a fitting way to send the great man off. Many words have been spoken today. I'll remember 7 in particular. 2-0, that's it. Argyle are up. Succinctly as that. Gordon put it when we got promoted, and there have been many wonderful words over the years. As I say, you'll all remember it in your own way. Thank you so much for joining us on this live stream. We're very proud that we were able to bring it to you. It's very moving to know how many people have not only been touched by Gordon's life, but have joined us today. Yeah, it's difficult, but thank you so much for doing so. Be well. Wouldn't it be wonderful if we could get promoted this season and do it in Gordon's honour? Finally, thank you to the man from the Gordon Sparks press box. It's a very good morning.
Take my chance.